Jackson trying to escape and run for it, and he's got it and more. Lamar Jackson down the sideline. Will they give it to him? They will. Touchdown, Baltimore.
And with 1:17 left to play on Wild Card Weekend, the Hayes in the barn.
Oh my God! I wish you guys could. I wish we had a camera in here so you could see what we're doing. We're just a bunch of clowns in here.
How much fun is that?
All right, welcome on back to another edition of the Baltimore Beatdown podcast. It is Friday, June 4th. My name is Jake Luke. I'm joined on screen not by Spencer Nathaniel Schultz, who is a little under the weather tonight. It is instead Vasily Larikos. What are we wearing here? I'm liking this whole thing.
Just a black tank top. A little warm this afternoon. You call me up from the P squad with Spenny day to day.
Yeah, exactly. You got called up at the right moment, and you made the right apparel choice because I'm liking this. It kind of feels you got a little chip on your shoulder. Did you hit arms or shoulders or anything before you came on here pumping the guns out there like that?
I did back today, actually. Back. Yeah.
You're a back guy. Okay.
You got to do back, man. It's important muscle group.
Yeah, you're right. I feel like I got to find some correct exercises to do it though, because I feel like knowing me, I would find a way to screw it up, and you do not want to screw your back up.
No. Start very light. Some rows, deadlifts. That's all you really need.
Yep, definitely. But here we are, first time hopping in the studio for the first time since Memorial Day weekend. We obviously had the early episode of the week off with the premiere of Forgotten Dynasty, which you should go and check out the first episode live to all platforms now. I got the next one coming next Monday, but we've had a nice little hiatus for Memorial Day. Back here in the studio, we were talking a little bit about how our weekends went, but why don't you brief the listener on how it went for you?
Just spent a lot of quality time with the family. I have 2 young kids, and sports, and grilled some meat, explored nature a little bit with the nice weather on Monday. Had a nice time, and had a really nice time listening to your outstanding podcast, Jake.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, it was an interesting weekend for me. Went down the ocean, down to Ocean City. First time back there probably since St. Patrick's Day, I guess. So, was definitely hoping for a little bit better weather. You got to shout out the Northeast. Always remains undefeated. Finds a way to muck some of these holidays up with some really crappy weather. It was just it wasn't like there was no serious storms that rolled through, but it was just that constant drizzle that would just roll through the entire day. And it's just you can't do anything. Just overcast, gray skies. So it just really led to a lot of drinking, which, we were feeling it a little bit on the way back and for a day or two here. And I'm dealing with some sore throat situation, sinus thing that I think Spencer is too. So it's been an interesting recovery period, but I got to get back on the horse because I got a wedding reception this weekend, which is going to be interesting. But, here we are. And sounds like your dog is getting in the action too. You want to give his take.
Yeah, he's making his debut. He's 2 rooms away with the door closed, but he's got a nice loud bark. I think this is his debut on the podcast.
Nice. It sounds like he's maybe got some takes on the Ravens OTAs that are going on right now, which I guess we can jump into whenever you're ready.
Well, he's been enjoying the cicadas. He figured out yesterday that he could eat them and then just ate 25 in a row off the deck.
Is that good for them? Yeah,
apparently it's a nice source of protein, so I don't see why not.
Shit, man, I might start eating them. We've got we've got trees all around my house, and they're just crowded around the trees. Just it's so loud out here, but I guess that's kind of a good thing. I mean, sign of nature, I guess, sign of an interesting little phenomenon that's going on. But I wasn't here the last time it happened, so I had no context of what it was going to look like, and it is weird.
It's very weird. This is the 3rd time for me. I was a little kid the first time, and I still kind of remember those little shells sticking to the tree, being a 4-year-old or however old I was back then.
Yeah, I've been going over them with the I get the deck on the tractor a little bit lower, and I get over them and just kind of get rid of them all because they're pretty gnarly, man.
Yeah, my kids like to play with them. My daughter repurposed her hermit crab case from Ocean City last summer to collect cicadas in.
Oh, that's honestly kind of sick. We might have to take a look at that after this. I guess we've riffed enough there. If you're ready to talk some more.
Let's do it. It's a good time of year. OTAs, another week of OTAs or session next week, and then minicamp.
Yeah, I feel like it crept up on me a little bit this year. I don't know if you feel the same way, and maybe it was COVID kind of limiting the off-season procedures last year, but I turn around and all of a sudden there's Rashad Bateman catching passes on video and running routes with Tylan Wallace, and you got Sammy Watkins and Lamar throwing passes to him, and maybe a little bit of a wobble on his passes, which there was some concern about, but that happens literally every single year going back to when he was drafted, so we don't have to worry about it, in my opinion. But before we get into OTAs talk, a couple bits of news if you want to hit on those first.
Sure. Well, let's do the news first. The Bishattis, the first class leaders that they are, they announced they'll be making the $4 million donation to Maryland's historic Black colleges and universities in Ozzie Newsome's name as a token of their appreciation for him. Phenomenal for in all respects. And really, if you think about it, I think Steve Bisciotti and Ozzie Newsome are the two pillars of this franchise.
Yeah, they certainly are. I think they bring like a type of culture, like you talk about like the Colts and like that first episode of the doc pod that I've been making. It kind of reminds me of the things that some people say about Rosenblum, and I think Bisciotti is even like a more classy. I don't know if classy is the word, but kind of just even a more kind of like modern, sort of more of gentlemanly than Rosenblum in some ways. And I think this shows through in that way where I don't know, like I can't think of any other owner that has done things like this and kind of been openly in support, regardless of what Bisciotti's political beliefs are, because I'm not totally sure where he comes down on that spectrum. And I don't know if he would agree with some of these Black players and Black figureheads on his team and everything on the political spectrum all the time, but he always seems to put his money where his mouth is as far as tangibly supporting them and tangibly trying to make the NFL a better place for his players and for his Black executives, which it's not always a great place for people like that, if we're being frank. It treats them well in some ways, in other ways there are some systemic issues to work through, and I think that's no different in the university system. And I think giving a system like the HBCU system some help and some wherewithal to move forward through the pandemic and whatever other issues they may be dealing with a $4 million donation is huge, and sort of that token of appreciation for Ozzie, who, let's face it, I think Ozzie has gotten like way too much shit for like the way things kind of ended with him a little bit, where the Ravens maybe weren't as competitive as he would have wanted them to be in his last 7 or 8 years. So people are kind of praising DeCosta a little bit and kind of dumping on Ozzie a little bit. I always kind of thought that was unfair, and it's nice to see this happen and nice to see Bisciotti really kind of tangibly show support for a guy who I think is one of the best GMs in league history, if not the best, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I was critical of Ozzie towards the end, and he made some missteps, but his track record speaks for itself. If anyone was allowed to be inducted into the Hall of Fame twice, it would be him. And let's be frank here. He still has a loud voice in the room. He's not, totally reserved. He's an important part still of the decision-making process. And Eric DeCosta's made some missteps as well. So let's not pretend that he is perfect. No GM is perfect. But Ozzie's been great. The Ravens are just first class, man. Everything they do, from the way they treat O.J. Brigance, the way everything, man. The media, where they do the calls with the season ticket holders. Bisciotti used to do the State of the Ravens press conference, the way that the team puts out clips on media and writes, and they win awards for it every year. They're first class, top to bottom in every single way. And Bisciotti, in my view, has not made a misstep his entire tenure, going all the way back to, I think it was 2 years before the first Super Bowl, when he bought half ownership with the option to buy the other half. And some are critical of the way he handled the Ray Rice situation. I thought that was also supporting his guy at that point, not condoning what he did, certainly, but supporting his guy. We're very lucky to have both of those gentlemen leading for all these years the team that we support.
Yeah, I think so too. And that was just a really nice feel-good story. So, another hat tip to them, and wanted to throw that in there off the top. Moving on into some more nuts and bolts type stuff, Ravens made a couple small signings today. I don't know if I got them all. I got defensive tackle Javon Swan and wide receiver Devin Gray. Was there another guy in the mix there, or was
not to my knowledge? No, those were the two.
Any heat on those guys from you? They were kind of no names in my database.
Yeah, they're kind of no names. I mean, the receiver room is a tough nut to crack. You're talking about you're going to be losing some recent draft picks and other players with upside. I don't think Gray has much of a chance. D tackle is an area where somebody could sneak in throughout the years. The Ravens, what are they known for finding? I would say it's defensive tackles, inside linebackers, and running backs where they can find guys. And I think there might be room, although Broderick Washington apparently has been showing well so far at OTAs.
Yeah, so it's always kind of interesting to see what happens with these guys that get added as you're kind of in that OTA period, because they're going to be coming in a little bit behind the eight ball already, which is unfortunate for them, but they're obviously just going to be happy for the opportunity. I think Ravens now sitting at 88 roster spots out of 90.
Right, and I think the main takeaway from OTAs, more than anything, more than clips you see, is the attendance. I mean, it's been inspiring, and I'm not sure how much the Juwan James situation in Denver played into the turnout, but pretty much every player under 32 years old has practiced, to my knowledge, that's not rehabbing an injury, besides your aging defensive lineman and Pernell McPhee, and I guess maybe Jimmy Smith. Every single guy's been out there, and I think that's a testament to these gentlemen are focused on chasing a championship, and you hear it in every single interview, in every single press conference. They want to maximize their opportunity, and they want to work to get better, and it's very encouraging.
Yeah, I think it's got to have something to do with the new coaching staff in place as well, where you've got guys like Martin and Williams coming in, and a couple other guys on the defensive side as well who we've heard from. And it's just interesting to see all this new blood, not only in the form of the players on the roster, but on the coaches. And Martin and Williams, they're kind of two outspoken guys that have gotten up on the podium already. T. Martin, I was already kind of familiar with because he was a part of the Brady Six. If you have not seen that ESPN documentary, check that out. He was one of the quarterbacks to get picked ahead of Tom Brady in the 2000 draft coming out of Tennessee. He had actually replaced Peyton Manning there. So he's kind of been he got into high school coaching after his career ended. He's been working his way up since. So T. Martin, a guy I'm really interested in. Keith Williams, the same thing. Kind of been doing that whole rogue wide receiver coach thing, which is pretty fucking sick, in my opinion. I think he's a really cool seeming guy. He's a little active on social media too, which you don't always see from coaches. So those two guys I'm really interested in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going in this offseason. The wide receiver room was a big time question mark. I think PFF just ranked them around 20th best in the league, which I think if Rashad Bateman, lives up to the expectation, they should easily exceed that. And they have depth on depth. They have talent. They have veterans. I think Hollywood's primed for a big year with a little less attention, and two great coaches to bring some new perspectives. And on the defensive side of the ball too, Anthony Weaver, former Raven D-line coach, now D-line coach. I think he's bringing some juice to the rim also.
Is Drew Wilkins new as well?
I believe so. I mean, who do they, besides the coordinators and Joe D, I don't know, and Urban, the quarterback coach, almost every single coach got poached. And Hewitt, the DB coach, I believe. Hewitt or Horton? I always get
I think Hewitt got poached. I think Horton is the special teams coordinator, so I think he's going to be sticking around. And I totally crushed that. Drew Wilkins has been with the Ravens for 12 seasons. Now they're in the second year as their outside linebackers coach. So I guess he's been working his way up. Yeah, he's been here a while. So it's definitely interesting. A lot of younger guys, like we've mentioned too, like Spenny has been mentioning, like that's been a Harbaugh thing. Like hire the old guy that like maybe he's friends with and like doesn't want to have to worry about bringing along, and he doesn't also want to have to worry about the fear that maybe he'll be, replaced or subsumed by that guy. It's interesting to see a lot of this new blood. So, that's definitely a storyline that I'm really tracking here. And as far as storylines that we can track, we've pretty much jumped into OTAs at this point, taking a look at a little bit of practice notes. First thing I had was Rashad Bateman returned from that injury that he picked up in his initial practices. He came back on Wednesday, has looked good since. Tylan Wallace looking good as well in the route running game.
Yeah, Wallace is flashing. Duvernay looks like he put on some good weight. He looks strong from the clips I've seen. And Bateman, I mean, probably a hammy. Hammies in the spring are very common. And they call it a quad, and that really means hammy, it seems. But it's just the most encouraging thing is they're out there getting reps with Lamar. Lamar has this infectious personality and that desire, that championship mentality, and it's going to rub off. Good to see Sammy Watkins show up this week after missing the first week. Same thing with Mark Andrews. I'm very encouraged by the potential development, and now it's going to come down to Roman improving the scheme and Lamar improving some of his mechanical issues.
So as a guy who, listen, you've been inside the ropes at some of these practices as a media member. I have not had that same fortune. So I'm just, not as quite a high roller as you. So what is kind of, and that's for training camp. So dialing it back to OTAs, what is kind of your initial thought on what to take away from these things? Because there is, as much as it is exciting, there's a lot of snark from people, and maybe even myself at times about you can't take away anything from this OTA stuff.
So I guess inside baseball, you get there, they give you, you're in the press room getting your articles ready, and they give you the sheet, the roster sheet. And then you go and put a check mark to make sure did anybody get hurt or is anybody missing practice? And then you just basically watch them do drills. They don't do a lot of hitting. They don't do a lot of defensive line versus offensive line. So you're basically watching, how is this receiver running routes? Where's the quarterback placing the ball? Is the corner or the safety, how does he look in coverage? And really then you just kind of watch the D lineman pop pads and hit the bags. And that's really the extent of it. You can't glean too much, certainly. I guess in training camp, when they do the joint scrimmages, which they probably aren't going to do this year, I would imagine, because of the pandemic still, that's when you can kind of see some stuff. But it's a physical game, and they take the physicality out of it during practice. So there's not a whole lot you can really learn.
Yeah, the best joint scrimmages they do to kind of take it off the rails a little bit here is the ones at the stadium practices where they get the scoreboards going and all the fans that are watching get it really into it. I always love those.
Yeah. I kind of like it when we were down there 2 summers ago and Jacksonville came, and then Leonard Fournette was talking smack, and then Judon was coming back at him, and you could just kind of see how the players were interacting. Who's kind of like the dogs? Who are the leaders on the team? You can kind of see that a little bit at the joint. Even regular practice. I mean, Pernell McPhee's the hype man, and he's getting everybody going and all that stuff.
Yeah, speaking of which, I guess we can jump into the next note. Some of the early intensity that we saw. This is definitely another storyline that you hear every year is guys getting into fights. But what I feel like usually happens with that is a young undrafted guy will try to start a fight because that kind of gets his name out there. Agents actually tell them to do that at the Senior Bowl if they're on the offensive line or the defensive line, because it's do that, get your name out there as a tough guy and try to make a name for yourself from there. But we saw it happen, I think maybe on the first day, maybe the second day between
Wednesday. Yeah. Well, the second OTAs, but yes.
Okay, yeah. So it was between Patrick McCarry, the center, and Justin Matabike getting into a fight in one of the first few days. What do you take away from the fights? I know it's kind of.
I mean, I like to see it, but I'm kind of into that macho stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like to see it. I like to see him being feisty and working hard. And I'm sure somebody did a block that was a little bit borderline or something like that, and the other guy took offense to it. It gives you something to write about too as a journalist, so it's not all bad. I saw somewhere that apparently afterwards Harbaugh tried to bring them together, and they were still both a little bit salty about it. But it's football. It's a man's sport.
No, I mean Kumbaya John's magic power is not working on those two guys. I actually kind of
yeah.
Wanted to give
good to see some fire. Good to see some fire always.
Yeah, I agree, and hopefully that'll make them both better. I think Matabike is in a spot where he obviously his roster spot is not in jeopardy, but maybe kind of sharpening up that iron will and all that kind of stuff, and getting himself ready to go for the season, maybe even this early ahead of time is a good thing. And McCarry is a guy who's going to be on the bubble potentially, so kind of build that rep up a little bit would be good for him too. And then want to give a hat tip to Cliff Brown. Noted Wednesday that Lamar Jackson was, he looked strong throwing. Apparently he had an interception on one of his plays. He was running around the field well without any issue was the note. and saying his conditioning is looking good, which this was a storyline I wanted to track a little bit as well, because he had COVID, and he looked fine coming back from it last season, but you never really know with COVID. We don't know like pretty much anything about it yet, it kind of feels like. So to see that he's out there running around well, I think Cliff said that he was running touchdowns in from like, X amount of yards, and then he would jog right back to the huddle and run another play and he would look fine. So I think that was just something I was happy to see.
Yeah, I believe I included that in the Daily Ravens news, and Cliff made a good point that Lamar's stamina is maybe the most underrated attribute of his game, because and throwing the ball, Lamar kind of always starts slow. It just kind of seems to be his pattern every offseason. And by the time the regular season's going, he's dropping dimes in the fourth quarter for game-winning touchdowns. It's just kind of his routine.
Yeah, the stamina thing I think is really interesting, especially in some of these games where he's throwing for 300 and running for 100 plus. Like, that's got to take so much out of you. Like, it kind of reminds me of the conversation where fans, like, they just assume that like burner wide receivers just only run 9 routes the whole game. It's like, dude, if you were to run like 4 9 routes in like a quarter, you would be totally gassed. Like, you can't just do that. So you got to have a more well-rounded skill set.
Well, and they have 5 different receivers they're rotating through, and Lamar's, they can keep the receivers fresh. Lamar, and out of his 100 yards, how many additional yards did he get going horizontally that they're not counting? So yeah, his stamina. I thought that was a great point, because I don't know. I didn't think about that, but it's very, very true.
It's good mental stamina too. If you're like scrambling around and like, guys that are trying to literally kick the shit out of you, and you like run for a first down and you just get it by the skin of your teeth, and you jump up, you run back, you got to get your guys all together, and you got to call a play, which is not easy to do. And then you got to snap the ball and do it again. And it's like, it's impressive stuff.
Absolutely.
Devin Duvernay looking good at wideout, which, there's always guys that are looking good at wideout this time of year, but people are excited about Duvernay, I think, especially with Willie Snead departing for Vegas. People feel like he fits prototypically into that Willie Snead role as maybe a number 4 rotational type receiver, running crisp routes, showing good hands. Again, you hear this about a lot of guys this time of year, but it's just good to get a positive progress report on Devin Duvernay right now.
For sure. They're very deep at receiver. I think he's got to be the front runner for the return as a return man. And then it's what's going to be the base 11. Are they going to put Bateman in the slot? Can Tylen Wallace play in the slot? Does Sammy Watkins go in the slot? Or does Duvernay? And I think there's probably going to be reps to go around. And he could be the kind of that quintessential X factor kind of guy that you watch out for. He's going to make one 50-yard play every 3 weeks and win a game for you.
Did you see anything specific on Patrick Queen's play? Because I saw notes about the number thing. Like, I saw really weird seeing like the numbers with him and Ford.
Yeah, that's not my favorite thing, to be honest. That not that I want him to succeed, but I kind of think that should be reserved. The single digits should be reserved for the players that have been long tenured and kind of earn it a little bit more. But I did see one note on his play that he dropped into a zone and made a good play on a pass to one of the tight ends. I don't recall. And he should have intercepted it, and the ball went through his hands, and the defense was ribbing him. But he was in the right place, so that's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, he wasn't always in the right place last season, so I think just kind of being there, and I think he's a pretty natural playmaker from what we saw at LSU, and he was often in the right place at LSU. That's one of the reasons that he got drafted. So I think that athleticism catching up to that mental side of the game is going to be really big for him, and also good to see LJ Fort playing strong as well after a little bit of a turbulent offseason for him.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the inside linebacker room and the rotation takes shape. I've always been pretty high on Harrison. I think he has a chance to make that second-year jump, as does Queen. And we can't undersell how much how the unusual offseason last year affected the rookies, especially for the really inexperienced guys like Queen. Queen's always been good coming forward, but if you start getting better going backwards, then you're really cooking.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else on practice notes?
No, I think you covered most of what I saw. I mean, they're taking it easy. Minicamp will ramp it up a little bit more. I guess the quarterback battle maybe quickly. Huntley versus McSorley, it doesn't look like they're going to have room for all three, especially if they keep Ben Mason on the active roster. Apparently, they've both been making some good throws. I kind of think Huntley has a little bit of a nod, and I think you can kind of tell when they interview the coaches, who do they lead with, or who do they mention first. But I did notice that Urban noted McSorley first, so maybe that's a nod to seniority there.
Yeah, I think Urban was a interesting interview, and I saw other people saying Huntley played better, just like people in the media. But you never know. I mean, like the mental side of the game, McSorley might be just a little bit further along by virtue of being there longer. But I don't know. They both kind of played well in their own right when they got out there on the field last season. So you got to think like whichever guy they choose, if they do choose to get rid of one, he's going to get snapped up by another team at some point.
I mean, it has to be a scheme fit, right? I mean, there's only 5 teams maybe that either of those guys would be scheme fits for, I would imagine. So it kind of depends. But then again, sometimes that mobile guy as your backup is a nice curveball to throw when you have to go to the reserves.
That was always the Rex thing when he was with the Jets. He liked to have the mobile guy behind Sanchez because he liked to be able to throw the defense on their toes when the backup had to come in.
Yeah, if you have a good defense and your starter goes down, you could kind of eke your way through a second half of a game if you have to, maybe.
Cool. So ready to move on to press conference notes.
Sure.
Tyus Bowser got up in front of the podium. We're rocking the Orioles hat, which you love to see. You always like to see the players supporting the, whichever team. It's always good to see Orioles players rocking Ravens stuff. So definitely wanted to make a note of that. Also noted that he's definitely he's a quiet guy. You can tell just by looking at him. The takeaway I had from him, making a point to become a more vocal leader, which is good, I think, because this linebacking core is getting a little bit younger, it feels like.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you have McPhee, and everybody else is young. I guess Ford and McPhee, but they're very young. Bowser's going to have to take a lot of snaps this year, I think. Could add another 20% to his snap share potentially, depending on how fast Owe comes on. And Ferguson, he might be one of those guys where you read their reports with a grain of salt. I'm kind of in a show me Missouri state with Ferguson right now. But Bowser has all the potential in the world. I think he's the best athlete on the team, pound for pound, maybe besides Lamar. But yeah, good to see. The coaches were raving about him in the interviews. What else would they be doing this time of year? But yeah, I think they made a nice addition. I think he should be a nice piece for the next 3-4 years with the Ravens.
Yeah, definitely was glad to see that contract extension come down, and glad to see that he is looking to move upward as opposed to just kind of stay stagnant. I mean, we'll see if that happens. Obviously, you're going to say that you're looking to do that, but just to hear it is a good thing. Talking about making improvements, James Urban, he was up at the podium, didn't give really any specifics regarding Lamar Jackson's improvements that they're focusing on, instead saying they'd like him to get better everywhere. His quote was, "I think that's the natural progression, a guy who plays at a very high level, and then you just continue to grow his game. One thing he and I have talked about are the great basketball players. Michael Jordan comes to mind. He had to learn jump shots. So you learn a jump shot and you just keep expanding your game that way." And it definitely feels like Lamar is a little past the jump shot phase. So it would be nice to get some more specifics out of Urban there, but what are you going to get,
The interesting note from that, and I guess it was a combination with Roman's comments as well, is that they are going to, or they plan to, take more snaps under center. And I thought Urban, I think it was Urban said that part of it was, he wants Lamar to improve his footwork and reading defenses and all that thing and just get, 5% better across the board and maybe 10% better at some of the deep shots maybe. But I thought that the snaps under center was something that we could glean a little information from. They were apparently 95% of all snaps were either pistol or shotgun last year. I think that contributed to the issues that the centers had. I mean, I heard an interview for Matt Burke on the local radio, The Fan, and he was saying, and he was a very tenured center, but he said any center that's doing it think about a quarterback. He doesn't make every single pass Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes misses passes. Center's snapping the ball that many times a game. He's going to have a few to the side or a little bit high.
Just more margin for error. Yeah. So that actually is a big storyline. I'm glad you brought it up. And maybe I could be wrong. Like I'm sure Spencer's going to hear this and like run to SIS and give me all the numbers in like 2 seconds. But I feel like we saw a little bit more of the single back or whatever it might be under center stuff from Kaepernick when he was under Roman, and maybe even Tyrod Taylor a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see Lamar giving that a shot.
Well, you want to be multiple, you want to be versatile, you want to be more balanced, you want in all ways, in all facets, even going back to the point about the coaches, and we talked about the personnel, and you want to have a veteran in every room, right? You want to have McPhee, and then Bowser, and then Oweh, and then even to the coaching staff, you have Rob Ryan, and then they have Anthony Weaver, and you have some young guys, you have some old guys, you mix it up. I think it brings out the best combination as far as run pass splits, as far as shotgun under center, all that stuff. And Roman called it, this is the time to experimental phase, something along those lines. And it's true. And they think they did miss a lot of this off-season time last year, and it hurt them.
Yeah, and I think it's conversely going to help them this year in a lot of respects. So it's good to hear. And last thing we had was just what Sammy Watkins had to say. Wasn't concerned about his health. He says the NFL is like a 100% injury rate, which is like, okay, Sammy, you actually do get hurt a lot, though. So let's maybe calm down with that. He was also very complimentary of Jackson. And here's the headline grab for any reporters who would be so inclined to do so. He compared the Ravens to the Chiefs at this point in the sense that they are ready for a Super Bowl.
I mean, I think he buys into the culture, and the Ravens do have an awesome culture. There's no denying it. That's not, you don't want Super Bowls only on culture. You need talent too, but the culture is undeniable. They're right up there with all the best teams, all the best franchises year after year.
Absolutely. All right, bud. Anything else you got from the press conferences?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
Cool, man. Well, I guess we have covered the first couple days of OTAs opening up here. Exciting time of the year. And anything else for the episode at large?
Looking forward to OTAs minicamp. Then you get a little downtime. We'll have some more big picture stuff, comparing some things to other teams in the division, and probably put out some evergreen content during that period, and then start gearing up. It's summertime, man. We're getting close to training camp already.
Yep, we certainly are. So, oh God. Oh, I'm so sorry. A little bit of a shorter episode here for you guys today for that very reason. My voice box is fucking shot right now. I'm just going to keep just drinking tea and water as much as I can. Spenny's out for the same reason, but we're just glad we could get you a little bit of a quick update on OTAs today. So thank you very much for joining me on this short notice, bud. I hope you had fun.
My pleasure. Always do.
Yep. So where can the folks find you before we get going?
I'm at Vasilis Beatdown, Vasilis Beatdown. And I think, you probably took your mask off in Ocean City, let the germs in. And now you're after a year of not letting any germs in, you're in trouble. Yeah, brother. I'm fully vaccinated for anyone curious. So likewise, I think I'm fine in that respect, but there's definitely, maybe some allergies that we're not prepared for the maskless lifestyle that I'm currently dealing with. So it's unfortunate, but we're going to power through it. It's not too bad. And yeah, we're happy that June is finally here. We hope the weather certainly turns around in some respect. I think it's maybe supposed to at some point, definitely getting some rain next week, but hopefully it clears up a little bit, get some golf in, and keep pumping out this evergreen content. Speaking of which, stay tuned on Mondays for Forgotten Dynasty, which is going to keep rolling out. We've gotten some good reviews rolling in from people, a lot of compliments. I appreciate yours earlier, buddy. And it's been a really fun process for me, and kind of still in the process of piecing together the end of it and like some of the promotional stuff for it, which I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. If so, keep hitting me up if you are. And I guess we will talk to you again on Monday. Follow me on Twitter at Jake Luke. Follow at Podcast Beatdown. Follow at Be More Beatdown, and check out BaltimoreBeatdown.com for all our great written content. You guys are the best, and we will talk to you. Arrivederci.
Gorlami. Gorlami.
Arrivederci. Arrivederci.
Arrivederci.
Arrivederci.